You leave Earth gently, as if the planet itself exhales behind you, letting go. The familiar blue and green swirl beneath your feet, fading slowly into the darkness. You are suspended in the soft hush of space, a quiet that is not empty, but full of waiting, of unseen currents moving through the black. Every photon that brushes your face carries the memory of distant suns, of fires that have burned for eons, and you sense, somewhere beyond, the faint promise of liquid worlds. Your journey carries you past the moon, past the planets you have only seen as pinpricks of light. The solar wind hums softly around you, invisible and persistent, like the faint echo of a heartbeat. You notice the shimmer of Saturn's rings, a pale halo, dust and ice in delicate dance. And yet, beyond all these celestial neighbors, you are drawn to something quieter, the subtle glint of water, hidden, waiting, on moons that have never felt your gaze. You imagine Europa first, the icy moon of Jupiter. Its surface is fractured and glowing faintly, a patchwork of cracks and ridges. Beneath that frozen shell, vast oceans swirl, salt and cold, slushing gently in a rhythm you cannot hear but can almost feel. If you close your eyes, you can imagine yourself floating above those waters, carried by unseen currents. You imagine the waves brushing against the underside of the ice, gentle yet immense, shaping the moon in ways that take millennia to notice. The surface is solid, quiet, but the water below tells stories of motion, of energy trapped beneath a crust of ice. Callisto drifts past, ancient and cratered, its surface a slow hymn of time. You sense water beneath it too, though it lies hidden in shadow and gravity's gentle pull. And Ganymede, larger than Mercury, stretches before you like a canvas of possibility. Its magnetic field hums faintly, whispering the subtle tug of invisible forces. Oceans exist there too, beneath layers of ice, turning slowly beneath the frozen exterior, quietly persistent. You can imagine creatures, if not shapes, at least movement, currents that shift and swell like thoughts in a dreaming mind. Out here, you feel the rhythm of tides in your own body. Space is not empty, it is a medium for thought, for wonder, for a patient, unhurried understanding of vast scales. You are both observer and participant, riding a current of imagination that bridges the gulf between worlds. The water you seek is alien, yet it resonates with what you know, the waves you have felt on Earth, the tides that coaxed your childhood footsteps along familiar shores. That same rhythm pulses here, in places you will never touch, in worlds that are too distant to reach with hands but near enough for your mind to wander. You drift further, past the orbit of Jupiter, where sunlight is weaker, thinner, almost translucent. Callisto recedes like a fading thought, Ganymede's glimmer softens. Beyond, you glimpse Enceladus, a small moon around Saturn, belching ice and vapor into the void. Its plumes rise from cracks in the frozen surface, tiny geysers that spray into the black, hinting at a hidden ocean below. You imagine riding those icy jets, carried gently upward, witnessing the delicate collision of liquid and vacuum, the birth of tiny ice particles that will drift forever among Saturn's rings. Even further, Titan calls. A world of thick, orange haze, where rivers of methane and ethane carve strange valleys, and lakes mirror an alien sky. There is water here too, locked beneath the surface, mixed with ice and rock, a quiet reservoir of possibility. You sense a pattern emerging. Water is not Earth's secret alone. It is a cosmic gift, persistent and patient, tracing the shapes of worlds in ways both subtle and grand. Every ocean, every lake, every hidden reservoir is a story in motion, a whisper of what life might become when given the chance to awaken. You slow your mind, letting these images float, weightless, around you. You feel the currents of other moons brushing past your awareness, gentle and persistent. Each world has its own rhythm, its own heartbeat, invisible but present. You imagine the tides on Europa rising and falling beneath ice that has never known wind. You imagine the frozen sheets of Enceladus flexing with the pull of Saturn, and Titan's methane rivers carving silent grooves over centuries. You feel the vast patience of these oceans, of a universe that moves slowly but never stops, a kind of rhythm that mirrors your own breath. In the quiet, your mind begins to sense the deeper connections. Water is a conductor of possibility. It is a medium for energy, for chemistry, for life itself. Even in the frozen depths of distant moons, molecules dance, subtle and persistent. You imagine the slow formation of complexity, the gentle nudge of currents against rock, the layering of ice and brine over eons. It is a reminder that even in silence, something profound is always unfolding, quietly shaping the world around it. And yet, you also notice the fragility. These oceans exist beneath shells of ice, or clouds of haze, or frozen crusts that hold them prisoner. The conditions are delicate, the balance precarious. And in that delicacy, there is a strange intimacy, a reminder that the universe, vast as it is held together by small, persistent forces. You feel it in your own chest, the gravity of curiosity, the pull of wonder, the gentle insistence that something beautiful always awaits discovery. You drift past these worlds, carried along by starlight and thought, and the silence stretches, a canvas upon which you paint with imagination. Somewhere, deep below Europa's ice, something stirs, a current moves, a chemical reaction hums quietly, a possibility exists that has never been observed. You imagine it as you imagine your own heartbeat, a small, steady motion, unhurried, full of hidden life. It does not rush, it does not shout, it simply is. And that is enough to fill the mind with awe. The light of distant stars glimmers through the void, each photon a messenger from an ancient past. You catch them like tiny fireflies, their warmth subtle, their presence soft against the cold. They trace paths through the ocean worlds, passing through ice and methane, telling silent stories of energy and time. You sense these photons as threads, weaving together disparate moons into a tapestry of connection, a quiet reminder that the universe is not separate, but deeply intertwined, moving in rhythms that are both alien and familiar. Your mind turns, gently, toward the notion of journeying even further. Beyond the orbit of Saturn, beyond the Kuiper belt, there are other frozen bodies, other potential oceans, hidden beneath icy exteriors, tucked into the dark. Each one is a whisper, a question, a possibility. You imagine riding along their surfaces, tracing the subtle undulations of water below, feeling the patience of the cosmos as it waits, quietly, for discovery. And you realize, softly, that this journey has no true end. Each ocean leads to another, each current to a new mystery, each frozen shell to the gentle promise of liquid beneath. And so, you float in this quiet, suspended between thought and space, between the oceans you know and those you imagine. You listen for the distant tides, for the rhythm of water across alien shores, for the whisper of currents beneath ice that has never seen the sun. You feel yourself connected, a part of this vast, unfolding story, carried forward on starlight, on wonder, on the promise of discovery yet to come. You begin by picturing the quiet of space. It is not the silence of an empty room, nor the pause between heartbeats. It is deeper, a stillness so vast that your mind stretches to meet it. Across that stillness, threads of light weave, traveling from one star to another, from one sun to your eyes. Light becomes the first messenger, the only voice that reaches across the black expanse. Each beam begins as fire, as a restless fusion deep inside a star. It escapes, pushing past storms of plasma, past magnetic fields, and finally out into the universe. When it leaves, it carries with it the fingerprints of its birth, tiny patterns, subtle shadows, the quiet memory of what it passed through. And so, when astronomers tilt their telescopes toward a distant sun, they are not just collecting brightness. They are gathering the faintest of letters, written on the surface of light. You imagine a star with a world orbiting it. You cannot see the world directly. It is too far, too small, drowned by the brilliance of its parent star. But when the world moves between its star and you, a fraction of the light dims. The shadow is not black, not sharp, but soft, as though the universe is taking a slow breath. This is a transit, a cosmic eclipse so delicate that only machines and patience can notice it. Now imagine that this light does more than fade. It changes. Some wavelengths vanish, absorbed by the atmosphere of the hidden planet. A molecule of water, floating high above that unseen world, swallows certain shades of light. Hydrogen pulls one color away. Oxygen steals another. To your eyes, the star still glows, but to an astronomer's instruments, the star now sings in a different voice. The missing notes reveal the presence of an atmosphere, and perhaps, within that atmosphere, the hint of liquid seas. Each photon becomes precious. It might have traveled for hundreds of years before reaching you. It might have been bent by gravity, stretched by the expansion of space, or scattered by interstellar dust. And still, it arrives intact, carrying the smallest clue. Astronomers wait, collect, and measure. They do not rush. The universe does not hurry, and so, they learn to slow themselves to its pace. You find yourself breathing with them. Inhale, the star brightens. Exhale, the star dims. You begin to feel the rhythm of discovery, a cadence softer than waves on a shore. The search for water worlds begins with patience but is fueled by longing. On Earth, every drop of rain, every river, every ocean tide reminds you of your own dependence on liquid water. It is your origin, your sustenance, your memory. And so, when you search the skies, you do not look for deserts first, nor for mountains. You look for oceans, hidden beneath clouds of distance. Astronomers speak of habitable zones, gentle rings around stars where temperatures are not too fierce, not too cold. Like a candle warming its circle of air, each star holds a region where water might remain liquid. Too close, and oceans boil into steam. Too far, and seas harden into ice. In that fragile band, in that balance, a planet may cradle rivers and rains. And though you cannot touch them, you know they may exist, waiting like unopened letters across the void. You picture yourself standing at the edge of such a discovery. A telescope receives its data. Lines of spectra appear, each dip a whisper of a chemical, each rise a reminder of starlight. Somewhere in that pattern, the curve of a water molecule appears. It is not a photograph, not an ocean you can see with your eyes. It is more like a reflection glimpsed in rippling glass, indirect, elusive, yet real. You feel awe in the delicacy of this method. To read the atmosphere of a world from light years away is to practice a kind of cosmic listening. You think of raindrops here on Earth. The way they collect sunlight into brief rainbows. The way they bend light into color. It is the same principle, played out on a grander, lonelier scale. A drop of water on a distant exoplanet bends light as well, whispering across space, telling you it exists. The stars become libraries, each photon a page. Astronomers turn those pages slowly, reverently. They know the words are fragile. They know a single false step, a miscalibration, a careless assumption, can blur the meaning. So they work like poets, letting silence between observations guide their interpretation. As you sink deeper into this thought, the universe begins to feel less like a void and more like a sea of messages. You are surrounded by signals. Every twinkle is not just beauty but information, every glimmer a data point. It is as though the night sky is leaning close, inviting you to notice, to listen, to learn. And then you return to the central question, why water? Because water is not only the medium of life but also the sculptor of landscapes. It carves valleys, smooths stones, sustains forests. It holds memory, cycles endlessly, and adapts. To find water on another world is to imagine rivers cutting new canyons, oceans shaping alien shores, clouds drifting across unfamiliar skies. It is to imagine life, not as we know it exactly, but as a possibility, shimmering and patient. You are not promised certainty. Astronomers cannot yet say with assurance that oceans fill those planets. But the hints grow stronger. Year by year, spectrum by spectrum, the whispers gather weight. Like a tide rising slowly, knowledge approaches, never sudden, always measured. The light that reaches you tonight may be old, older than human memory. It has crossed a universe still in motion, a universe still expanding. And yet, it carries the same promise, that somewhere, unseen seas may wait. You close your eyes and let that promise settle in your chest like a calm tide. The chapter does not end with an answer. It ends with a question, quietly left in the air. If light can reveal water, what other secrets might it carry, waiting for you to learn how to read them? You begin your journey standing at the edge of a planet whose surface is barely visible beneath the shifting folds of mist. The air feels thick, yet gentle, brushing softly against your skin like the slow exhale of a morning breeze. Here, the clouds do not merely drift, they seem to breathe, swelling and receding in rhythm with the pulse of the planet itself. Each wisp of vapor carries a memory of distant oceans, rivers, and lakes, even if they remain hidden from view. You notice how the light bends as it passes through these floating veils, scattering in subtle rainbows that disappear almost as quickly as they appear. There is a quiet magic in this, a sense that the atmosphere itself is alive, an invisible ocean you can wander through without ever touching the ground. As you move further, you sense how delicate this balance is. On some worlds, the atmosphere is thin, almost hesitant to hold on to moisture, so clouds form only rarely, like shy dancers hiding in corners. On others, the air is thick with vapor, dense as silk, wrapping the planet in a permanent embrace. You can almost feel the weight of it pressing softly, a gentle reminder that every breath of wind is part of a larger circulation, a dance that has continued for millions of years. Here, clouds are not simply water, they are storytellers, carrying whispers from the planet's oceans and melting ice, translating distant movements into shapes that drift above your head. You notice a faint shimmer far off in the horizon, a subtle hue that hints at the presence of rain. It is as if the atmosphere is holding a secret, waiting for the right moment to release it. The idea of rain here feels personal, almost intimate. You imagine each droplet as a tiny messenger, descending from the sky to the land below, carrying with it the essence of clouds that have traveled thousands of kilometers. Rain is never merely wet, it is the planet speaking in liquid rhythm, telling a story that only attentive wanderers can hear. As the first droplets begin to fall, you lean into them, letting them brush softly against your skin. They are cool, precise, and yet impossibly gentle, a reminder of the quiet patterns that govern this world. Above you, the clouds shift into shapes that mirror the oceans below. The reflection is not literal, it is a resonance, a subtle echo of the currents and tides that shape the hidden waters beneath the mist. Sometimes, you see streaks of blue or green shimmering faintly, like a distant aurora. These hints suggest movement, life, or perhaps only the rhythm of the planet itself. You pause to watch, understanding that the sky is both a mirror and a veil, hiding and revealing the truth in the same breath. Every shift in cloud, every subtle change in shade, tells you something about the unseen forces at work. You feel a strange serenity in this, the comfort of being a quiet observer of a larger, unfathomable system. You begin to notice the sound of the atmosphere. It is not loud, there is no thunder or roar. Instead, it is a soft, almost imperceptible hum, like the whisper of 1,000 tiny droplets vibrating in unison. The wind moves through the vapor in gentle arcs, creating currents that are invisible yet palpable. As you listen, you understand that these sounds are the pulse of the planet itself, the subtle energy that circulates endlessly between sky and sea. Even the silence is instructive, each pause in the wind a punctuation mark in the ongoing story of this world. You let the sound wash over you, synchronizing your own breath to the ebb and flow, becoming a part of the quiet rhythm rather than merely an observer. Time here moves differently. There is no urgency, no strict sunrise or sunset. The light filters through the clouds in slow gradients, shifting from soft silver to warm gold, then to a pale lavender. Each moment feels suspended, as if the planet itself is holding its breath, allowing you to wander without haste. The cloud shadows play upon the ground, sliding gently across surfaces that you cannot quite see. You imagine what lies beneath: oceans, mountains, forests, or deserts, all cloaked beneath the atmosphere's tender veil. It is the unknown that makes this place so compelling, the idea that each moment brings the possibility of revelation, though the planet asks only that you move slowly, notice quietly, and feel deeply. You catch sight of tiny droplets suspended in the air, almost frozen, hanging in mid-motion. They refract the light in subtle patterns, creating miniature rainbows that curve and bend as you pass. These microdrops are the building blocks of clouds, and in them, you see the potential for entire weather systems. Each one is both individual and communal, a particle in an intricate network of motion. You think about how every storm, every mist, every gentle rainfall begins with these smallest elements. It is a reminder that even in vast, planetary scales, the tiniest components carry weight, influence, and purpose. The notion is calming. The universe's complexity is woven together from delicate threads, not only grand gestures. As you continue, the clouds themselves seem to shift deliberately to reveal glimpses of the surface below. In patches, you see dark blue rivers snaking through landscapes, or pale lakes that reflect the sky with a subtle glow. There is a rhythm here, a feedback loop between water and air, where each influences the other in cycles that can last eons. You realize that the planet's moods, so visible in the sky, are also shaped by the flow of water beneath. It is a quiet, reciprocal conversation between elements, a dialogue without words, yet full of meaning. You feel privileged to witness it, to be a silent participant in this ongoing exchange. Occasionally, the wind shifts, and with it, the shape of clouds changes entirely. You see formations that resemble mountains, waves, or even abstract, flowing patterns that seem almost intentional. The movement is slow, deliberate, almost meditative. You think of these clouds as sculptures, fleeting but profound, created and dissolved by invisible hands. Watching them, you understand that impermanence is part of the beauty here. Nothing stays the same for long, yet the planet's character remains consistent. There is a continuity in change, a softness that comes from accepting the fleeting nature of all forms. You sense that the atmosphere is layered, each stratum with its own personality. The lower clouds are dense, tactile, holding moisture that might someday fall as rain. The middle layers float lazily, catching and scattering light, while the uppermost veils shimmer faintly, almost like ghosts of the clouds below. Each layer communicates in subtle ways, influencing temperature, pressure, and movement. You imagine yourself drifting through each one, feeling the variations as gentle shifts in pressure and scent. It is an intimate experience, as if the planet is welcoming you into its most hidden corners, offering a perspective that few ever perceive. Eventually, the first raindrops begin to collect in small rivulets on unseen surfaces, joining together into streams that might one day feed lakes or rivers. The water's journey is long, but every drop starts here, suspended in the atmosphere before gravity beckons it down. You let yourself follow this imagined path, tracing each droplet's descent in your mind. There is a calm assurance in knowing that the cycles are eternal, repeating in harmony with the planet's natural rhythms. This is not a place of sudden surprises or chaos, it is a carefully choreographed symphony, with each element playing its part in quiet balance. The sky continues to shift, clouds parting briefly to reveal a hint of a distant horizon. You glimpse colors that suggest oceans below, and the interplay of light creates the illusion of depth and distance. The planet is vast, yet intimate, immense in scale, yet tender in its details. You feel your own breath sync with the rhythm of clouds, wind, and falling rain. It is as though the planet itself is teaching you patience, showing you that understanding does not require rushing, only attention and presence. Finally, as you drift slowly through this veiled world, you notice how the clouds gather once more, thickening into a gentle shroud. The rain softens, fading to a mist that hugs the contours of the unseen land. You realize that the planet's secrets are not fully revealed, that some mysteries exist to be observed rather than solved. There is a comforting ambiguity here, an invitation to linger in curiosity, to let wonder linger without expectation. And as the sky settles into a quiet, reflective silence, you feel the gentle pull of the next chapter of your journey, where the unseen forces of wind and current promise new stories, waiting to unfold. You drift outward, far beyond the warmth of Earth's seas, into the colder reaches where moons orbit their giant parents. Here, you learn that oceans are not only a gift of planets, but also of these smaller, silent companions. At first glance they seem barren, rough spheres of rock and ice, shrouded in frost. Yet, beneath their frozen surfaces, whole oceans lie hidden, worlds of water in waiting. You imagine them as secret chambers of life, enclosed within shells of white and blue, quietly guarding mysteries that may one day speak. Your gaze rests first on Europa, one of Jupiter's many moons. Its surface is streaked with scars, a frozen canvas etched by cracks that stretch for thousands of kilometers. These lines are not still, they shift, they open, they close, whispering that something alive moves below. Scientists believe a deep ocean lies under its ice, kept warm not by sunlight but by the kneading pull of Jupiter's gravity. This gravitational tug stirs Europa's insides like dough, producing heat, keeping its waters from freezing solid. You imagine standing upon Europa's smooth ice plains. The silence is immense, broken only by the faint groans of ice shifting beneath your feet. Below you lies an ocean deeper than Earth's, perhaps 2 or 3 times as vast, pressing against the shell above with patient strength. In your mind, you see it like a globe of water in darkness, stirred by currents, touched by minerals from the seafloor. You wonder, if life on Earth began in oceans warmed by volcanic vents, could Europa's hidden seas cradle similar sparks? Slowly, you drift farther, toward Enceladus, a moon of Saturn, smaller than Europa, yet no less mysterious. At first, Enceladus seems quiet, a tiny pearl, only about 500 kilometers wide. But then you see the geysers. Streams of water shoot into space from cracks near its south pole, fountains of vapor glowing in Saturn's light. These plumes are not just water, they carry hints of organic molecules, whispers of chemistry that might echo Earth's beginnings. You picture yourself gliding over the plumes, watching the spray rise and fall, like breath exhaled into the cosmos. It is as if Enceladus cannot contain its secret, leaking the story of its ocean drop by drop into space. Beneath its crust, a sea stretches out, warmed again by Saturn's pull, heated by friction and stone. And you imagine, if microbes swim there, would they gather near the warmth of underwater vents, huddled against the cold, glowing faintly like sparks in a night that never ends? From Enceladus, you drift onward to Titan, Saturn's largest moon, wrapped in a thick orange haze. Titan is unlike any other. Its surface holds rivers and lakes, but not of water, instead, they are of methane and ethane, liquid hydrocarbons that glisten under a dim golden sky. Yet beneath Titan's icy crust, scientists believe another ocean lies hidden, vast and rich with water mixed with ammonia. You picture yourself floating through Titan's heavy atmosphere, parachuting down like the Huygens probe once did. Around you stretch lakes of methane, smooth and dark, reflecting the pale glow of Saturn's light. Yet you know the greater ocean lies hidden deeper, far below the surface, locked away in silence. Titan whispers to you in riddles. Could 2 kinds of seas, one of methane above, one of water below, create a stage for life stranger than anything Earth has ever known? The thought lingers, and you realize these moons are not barren rocks, but cradles of possibility. Each one is a question wrapped in silence. Europa asks what stares beneath its cracked plains. Enceladus breathes secrets into space, inviting us to taste its spray. Titan holds twin oceans, daring us to imagine life not just as we know it, but as it could be. You reflect on water itself, the soft, familiar element that sings through Earth's rivers, that fills our cells, that covers most of our world. Here, in the outer solar system, water reveals itself as something universal. It does not belong only to Earth. It hides in shadows, it freezes, it flows under pressure, it bursts forth in plumes. It is the quiet architect of potential, a thread connecting worlds across light years of distance. As you drift deeper into this meditation, you sense how small the boundaries of Earth truly are. Our oceans once felt infinite, yet here are oceans multiplied, buried in alien shells, untouched by air or sun. The thought is both humbling and comforting. The cosmos carries water generously, scattering it like seeds across the garden of space. And with water comes the possibility of life, waiting, patient, in the darkness. Your imagination slips beneath Europa's ice again. You picture submersibles of the future, small mechanical fish released through melted tunnels, swimming into black water. You see their lights cutting through the dark, illuminating strange landscapes, icebergs floating upside down, vents spewing heat, mineral-rich towers rising from the seafloor. What might drift through those shadows? Could there be creatures shaped not by light but by pressure, feeding on chemical energy, their bodies strange yet familiar in the way all life adapts to its home? Then you return to Enceladus, and picture standing at the edge of a geyser. The plume rises into space, delicate and strong, like a bridge between ocean and stars. You think of how a spacecraft could fly through, gathering droplets, tasting the chemistry of another world without ever landing. Already, probes like Cassini have done so, revealing salts, organic molecules, and even signs of hydrothermal activity. Each droplet is a story, carried across vacuum, waiting to be read. And then Titan, with its twin worlds of liquid. You let your thoughts stretch beyond the boundaries of Earth's biology. Could life breathe methane as easily as you breathe oxygen? Could cells build themselves not from water alone, but from another solvent entirely? The question feels vast, almost too large to hold, yet it lingers like a whisper of possibility. Titan becomes a mirror of imagination, showing that life may not be bound to the rules we know. As you rest with these visions, the rhythm of your thoughts slows. You feel the moons circling their giants, silent guardians of hidden seas. They do not rush. They do not reveal their secrets easily. They wait, as the cosmos often waits, patient and enduring, carrying oceans across the cold. You realize that your journey through these moons is not only about science, but about wonder. To know that water, the element that cradled you on Earth, also fills distant oceans is to feel less alone in the universe. It is to sense that life, in some form, might not be confined to one small blue world. The silence of these moons is not emptiness, it is invitation. And so, you drift onward, carrying the image of hidden oceans in your mind. Beneath the ice, life may stir unseen. Above the ice, plumes may whisper into space. Between them, you sense a bridge, between what is known and what is still only imagined. And as your thoughts settle, you find yourself wondering, if moons carry seas within, what other hidden realms might the universe be holding, waiting quietly beyond sight? You drift slowly into the deep, deeper than the sunlight dares to follow. The world above, with its dancing skies and whispering winds, fades into a memory. Here, in the quiet darkness of the ocean's abyss, a different kind of music begins, one made of bubbling heat, the soft hiss of water meeting stone, and the slow, patient rhythms of creation. Imagine yourself hovering near a hydrothermal vent, where the earth exhales its warmth into the surrounding water, a secret furnace hidden beneath miles of liquid night. The vent glows faintly, not with fire as you know it, but with the heat of minerals dissolved into water. Tiny particles float in the currents, shimmering faintly, as if the darkness itself were studded with stars. In these swirling clouds, chemistry dances. Molecules collide and cling, forming new bonds in a silent choreography. You realize that this is not chaos, this is poetry. The patterns are simple yet profound, each reaction a stanza, each spark a formation a verse in the story of life. You feel a gentle pulse under your fingertips, though you are not touching anything. Perhaps it is the water, heated unevenly, or perhaps it is the rhythm of beginnings themselves. Life, in its earliest form, was not a being or a creature, but a process, an elegant negotiation between heat, minerals, and the whispering currents of water. Here, in the pressurized cold, warmth finds its voice. It speaks through molecules folding into one another, through energy passed along invisible pathways. This warmth is a cradle, and in it, life learns to rise. Imagine the first cells, tiny and fragile, as vessels of possibility. They float, carried by the slow current, learning the language of their surroundings. The vent offers more than warmth, it offers gradients, differences in temperature, chemical richness, a buffet of opportunity. The molecules inside these protocells are curious and experimental, trying combinations, testing boundaries. In the silence, you can almost hear their experimentation, a faint murmur, the gentle sigh of new forms taking shape. The environment seems extreme to you, but to these first forms, it is home. Pressure presses down from above, yet inside the tiny chambers of life, reactions flow like music. Life is learning, in the most patient and subtle way, how to persist, how to harness energy, how to transform its surroundings without disturbing them entirely. You imagine it watching the vent, not with eyes, but with sensitivity, responding to the subtlest changes in chemical gradients, in heat, in mineral concentration. Every movement, every collision is a step toward complexity. Look closer and you notice microenvironments, pockets where warmth meets cold, where mineral concentrations vary. Here, life experiments with difference. A molecule folds in one place and splits in another, a chemical gradient bends around a rock and reforms in a new direction. You might think of these microenvironments as classrooms for the first living systems, each tiny pocket offering lessons in survival, adaptation, and creativity. There is no rush here, only the slow unfolding of possibility, as patient and unassuming as a wave polishing a pebble over centuries. Now imagine other worlds, alien oceans far beyond our sun's gentle gaze. Could they too harbor vents like these, glowing faintly under ice or dense clouds of water? In the darkness, you envision lantern-like formations, spitting mineral-rich warmth into cold, alien seas. Life, if it exists there, would not read your books or walk in your forests, but it could know the same first joy of chemical curiosity, the thrill of reactions cascading into form, of molecules learning to work together, of energy finding patterns it had never known. In your mind, you drift among these possibilities, feeling the universal rhythm of beginnings. Life, you realize, is not bound to a single shape or a single world. It is the process itself, the dialogue between energy and matter, heat and pressure, chance and patience. The vent you watch on Earth is one stanza in a cosmic poem, repeated endlessly across space and time, each repetition slightly different, each iteration discovering new variations of the melody of existence. Return your focus to this vent, here on our blue planet. Tiny tubes of chimneys rise from the seafloor, formed as minerals precipitate from the superheated water. The structures are intricate, delicate, and ephemeral, yet they endure long enough to provide shelter, gradients, and opportunity. Life nests in their folds, tiny membranes encapsulating reactions, small bubbles of order in a vast, indifferent ocean. You can almost sense the patience required. Life does not rush, it grows quietly, steadily, learning the rules of its universe one molecule at a time. You watch as currents swirl around the vent, carrying heat outward, diffusing chemical richness into the surrounding water. The flow is gentle yet persistent, like breath. It reminds you that beginnings do not need spectacle, they need consistency, subtle forces moving steadily over time. Life here is not loud, it is a whisper, a slow embrace between the building blocks of existence and the energetic pulse of the planet beneath. Perhaps you imagine the first replication, a molecular system that could duplicate itself. It is not yet a creature, not yet conscious, but it carries within it the possibility of memory, of heredity, of growth. In that possibility, you sense a profound quiet joy, the universe experimenting with form and persistence, the first sighs of something that will, over eons, come to recognize itself, to walk, to wonder, to imagine. You breathe with the current, feeling the warmth in the abyss, and notice how the vent's plume reaches outward, connecting its isolated heart to the surrounding water. There is a lesson here, beginnings are never isolated. The first life reaches out through gradients, through diffusion, through subtle exchange. It communicates not with words but with effect, touching its environment and being touched in return. This dance is delicate, precise, and utterly necessary. Without it, life could not persist, could not evolve. Think of the vent as a teacher, patient and unassuming, offering lessons in persistence, adaptation, and collaboration. Here, molecules do not compete in the human sense, they interact, explore, and find harmony. Life learns that in order to grow, it must work with the currents, the chemistry, and the very structure of the planet itself. Each reaction, each fold of a molecule, each budding vesicle carries a small story, a microcosm of what it means to exist. As you linger, you realize the vent is both cradle and lighthouse, illuminating not with light, but with possibility. You sense the continuity between Earth's ancient past and the distant, perhaps invisible, worlds beyond. Life is not a singular miracle, it is a recurring pattern, a rhythm, a question the universe asks of matter and energy again and again. And you, hovering in the quiet dark, are part witness, part traveler, part dreamer. Finally, as you begin to drift away from the vent, you carry its warmth within you. You leave behind the glowing chimneys and the gentle chemistry of beginnings, but not the feeling, the sense that life starts quietly, patiently, beautifully. Somewhere in the abyss, somewhere across the cosmos, similar beginnings are unfolding, echoing the same fundamental poetry. Heat meets water, stone meets life, and possibility unfolds like a slow, endless wave. And as you let the current take you deeper into the dark, you wonder quietly, what other hidden furnaces wait to whisper the first verses of life, and which of them might one day meet the curiosity of your imagination? You feel it first as a gentle tug, almost imperceptible, as if the earth itself is breathing beneath your feet. The moon, a quiet sentinel in the night sky, whispers across the oceans. Its pull is subtle, steady, a magnetic caress that raises tides and lowers them again in a rhythm older than memory. You imagine standing on a shore, watching water respond to this invisible hand, rising and falling as though the sea itself listens. The tide is not just water, it is a pulse, a heartbeat linking planets and stars in a slow, cosmic conversation. Each wave carries the echo of motion from distant bodies. The moon arcs gracefully, tracing its path through the heavens, while Earth spins beneath it, a dance of delicate balance. You notice the patterns, the tides do not rush, they unfold, wave after wave, with patience. Beneath this surface, microscopic organisms sway and rise, carried by currents that have been choreographed for eons. Life itself seems to bend toward these rhythms. You imagine plankton drifting, feeding, multiplying, oblivious to your gaze but vital to your own existence. The moon's pull is a conductor, and life responds with quiet devotion. There is a poetry in the timing. High tide is not just a mark on a chart, it is a moment when the world is drawn outward, when water leans toward the sky with gentle insistence. Low tide returns with the same careful attention, retreating not in defeat but in preparation. You feel a subtle connection to this flow, sensing that your own pulse is mirrored in the swell and fall. The ocean is alive, not merely with creatures, but with the music of forces that extend far beyond sight. You close your eyes, imagining the threads of gravity weaving through space, linking your heartbeat to a lunar dance. Planets, too, sway each other. Earth is pulled toward the sun, but not without resistance. Jupiter, Saturn, and even distant Neptune tug lightly, their invisible fingers brushing the orbit of your world. You think of these motions as a ballet, precise and patient. Stars in turn respond to these planetary steps, shifting imperceptibly, their light bending slightly, guiding your night vision without your knowing. Even here, on your small patch of sand or soil, the cosmos participates. Gravity is not mere numbers or equations, it is the language of connection. You feel, in this way, that you are not separate from the sky, but a participant in its vast, measured conversation. As the tide moves in, you notice the tiny creatures emerging along the shore. Crabs scuttle, leaving delicate tracks in wet sand. Seaweed sways, brushing the fingers of water in slow, flowing arcs. Each movement is dictated by forces far beyond their perception, yet they thrive, adapted perfectly to the rhythm of the oceans. You imagine these small lives as reflections of the planets themselves, each responding, adjusting, thriving in accordance with invisible laws. Their survival depends not on struggle but on attunement. There is wisdom in this, that sometimes, to flourish, one only needs to move with the current rather than against it. Currents below the surface are slower, deeper, and yet equally profound. Warm water drifts from equator to poles, carrying heat, nutrients, and life. Cold water rises from the depths, returning elements that fuel unseen ecosystems. You trace these pathways as if following a river in the sky, noticing how tides and currents converse, how water itself is a medium for a dialogue of movement and life. You sense the oceans as a living network, where even the smallest ripple connects to the vast, unseen system beneath. The sea is both stage and actor, shaping its own performance in response to forces both near and far. In your imagination, you travel further. You see the moon's face mirrored in thousands of ocean surfaces across the globe. You feel the synchronous movement, as though the world inhales and exhales in unison with celestial bodies. Tides are not random, they are a script written in the language of gravity, each line precise, each movement intentional. You feel gratitude for the orchestration, understanding that without this invisible music, life as you know it would be impossible. The moon is a guide, a gentle hand, shaping the possibilities of every shore, every river mouth, every hidden trench. Sometimes, storms rise unexpectedly. Waves swell, wind howls, and the rhythm seems disrupted. Yet even here, in chaos, the same forces are at play. Gravity continues to pull, tides still respond, and currents adjust. You sense that there is resilience in the system, a capacity to absorb, recover, and continue the dance. Life adapts, too, bending without breaking. In this, you see a metaphor for your own existence. The forces shaping you are larger than your awareness, yet they guide, sustain, and invite participation. At night, the ocean reflects starlight, a mirror of the broader cosmos. You imagine planets tugging gently at one another, distant suns casting warmth, and comets arcing in silence. The tides respond to these distant whispers, subtly, imperceptibly, in ways that shape the very foundation of life on Earth. You feel the poetry of connection. Everything moves in relation to everything else, a dance of cause and effect that has no beginning or end. You are part of it. The moon's song is your lullaby, the tide your cradle, and the ocean your companion in this quiet, expansive moment. The rhythm of water becomes rhythm of life. Fish follow the pulses, plankton bloom in timed cycles, and entire ecosystems rise and fall in harmony with forces both visible and invisible. You feel your own breathing fall into step, slow and deliberate, like waves meeting the shore. There is a gentle lesson here, awareness of the unseen, respect for subtle forces, and a patience that honors time itself. Even as you drift into thought, you sense the interconnectivity of all things, the continuity of motion from moon to ocean to star, and back again to the very place where you stand. Gravity is music, tides are the notes, oceans are the instrument. You are an audience and a participant at once, feeling the quiet swell of universal rhythm. Each high tide reminds you of potential, each low tide of reflection. You see that life, in all its complexity, is an echo of these motions, unfolding with curiosity, patience, and an unspoken agreement to move in harmony. You feel a soft awareness of the vast networks that bind worlds together. A pull, a tug, a gentle insistence that all things are connected. And as the night deepens, you linger on the shore, feeling the last ripple of high tide wash over your toes. The moon arcs higher, the stars shimmer more clearly, and the currents continue their patient, endless voyage. You know that this dance will continue long after your eyes close, long after your thoughts drift into dreams. In this knowledge, there is a calm certainty, a sense of belonging to something far larger than yourself. And somewhere in the quiet, you sense the question that will carry you forward. If the ocean moves in response to the moon, how does the universe move in response to you? You arrive at the edge of the world you know best, the familiar scent of salt and the soft cry of gulls welcoming you. The ocean stretches before you, endless yet intimate, each wave a pulse you can feel in your chest. You take a slow step forward, feeling the damp sand compress beneath your feet, a rhythm that mirrors the heartbeat of your own awareness. You inhale, and the brine carries a memory older than memory itself, a reminder that water is life, movement, and quiet persistence all at once. You kneel, tracing the curl of a small wave as it approaches, retreating in delicate surrender. It leaves behind a pattern of foam and a whisper of the ocean's constant motion. You notice how water interacts with the world, shaping stones, smoothing edges, carving paths over millennia. The rocks you touch are not merely objects but storytellers, etched with patience, resilience, and subtle change. In these small interactions, you see lessons that could guide your understanding of faraway waters. A ripple here becomes a wave there, and that wave carries information, energy, possibility. The sun hangs low, its light bending across the surface in golden streaks. You pause to watch a tide pool, a tiny universe contained within a single, shallow basin. Tiny creatures move with precise intention, each interaction a ballet of survival and adaptation. You imagine their counterparts on distant worlds, if they exist, moving through liquid not just for life but for the rhythm of life. How might an alien ocean shape a being, a mind, or a society? How does the medium, this fluid, ever-shifting cradle, sculpt the possibilities of its dwellers? You sense that to understand them, you must first understand the oceans you touch now. You stand and let the waves reach your ankles, then your knees. The water is cool, inviting, and it pulls at the edges of your awareness. Every wave carries a story of gravity, wind, and planetary rotation, forces you cannot see but can feel. You let yourself move with it, stepping back when the swell pushes forward, leaning in when it withdraws. In this quiet dance, your body remembers its own connection to motion and flow. You are both observer and participant, a temporary part of the vast choreography of Earth's waters. Beyond the immediate splash and retreat, the ocean holds patterns that are invisible at first glance. Currents travel thousands of miles, transporting heat, nutrients, and life itself. You imagine these pathways extending beyond your planet, carrying unseen energy across the vast darkness between stars. The ocean teaches patience. It teaches perspective. The small waves at your feet reflect larger truths. The deep currents are not hurried, yet their effects are profound. They remind you that the subtle, persistent forces often matter more than the dramatic or instantaneous. The wind shifts, brushing against your skin with gentle insistence. You breathe with it, inhaling the mingled scent of salt and air, tasting the mixture of mineral and moisture. It reminds you that water is never isolated, it moves through sky and soil, through life and cloud, connecting distant points in ways your eyes cannot immediately trace. On exoplanets, you imagine, these connections might be even stranger, shaped by atmospheres denser or thinner, temperatures hotter or colder, gravity unfamiliar yet obeyed. Still, the principle remains. Water carries memory, motion, and possibility, wherever it flows. A gull dips close to the surface, skimming over the liquid mirror. You watch its reflection ripple across the water, fracturing and reforming like thoughts in your own mind. Reflection, you realize, is not just the act of seeing, it is the act of understanding. To look at water is to consider its nature, its history, and the forces acting upon it. To consider oceans is to consider how life might emerge, adapt, and flourish elsewhere. You feel the weight of curiosity pressing gently, urging you to imagine beyond the familiar, while reminding you of the lessons here, at home. You walk along the shore, feeling the wet sand give beneath each step. Tiny crabs scuttle aside, disappearing into the safety of their burrows. You watch, fascinated, noting their ingenuity, their rhythms, and their quiet persistence. On distant worlds, perhaps creatures do not scuttle but glide, float, or swim in ways unimaginable. Yet the principle of adaptation remains. Environment shapes action, and action shapes understanding. Each small organism on Earth becomes a metaphor for the possibilities that might exist beyond. The tide rises slowly, drawing your attention to the interaction of lunar pull and planetary rotation. You notice the precision of natural timing, the unseen choreography that moves entire masses of water in unison. It is a lesson in subtle power, an invisible force directing motion without forceful insistence. You realize that understanding these rhythms, their cause and effect, can teach you how to read the signature of water anywhere, on ice-covered moons, hidden beneath clouds, or shimmering under alien suns. You pause to float a small stone in the shallows, watching it drift with the current. It does not resist, it moves with grace, following the paths already present. You wonder about the oceans of other planets, whether they carry stones, or bubbles, or life forms that move with equal quiet elegance. Every ripple you observe here acts as a cipher, hinting at the universal principles that govern fluid dynamics and the shaping of worlds. Water teaches you humility. It is both gentle and formidable, patient yet powerful, familiar yet endlessly mysterious. The sun now lowers toward the horizon, spreading a palette of rose, gold, and indigo across the surface. You kneel once more, submerging your hands just enough to feel the temperature shift with depth. The sensation is grounding. The ocean is a teacher, a mirror, a companion in thought. In its movements, you sense the continuity of planetary life, the connection between energy, matter, and memory. You consider how these lessons might extend to alien waters, the potential for discovery, the reassurance that some principles are universal, and the reminder that observation is a sacred act. You sit at the water's edge as the sky deepens into twilight. The waves continue their timeless rhythm, a gentle lullaby that both soothes and awakens curiosity. You imagine carrying this understanding into the cosmos, carrying the memory of tides, currents, and reflective pools into the unknown. Each lesson here forms a bridge to what might wait among the stars, alien oceans whose secrets are encoded in patterns similar to the ones you now touch and feel. Finally, you rise, brushing sand from your hands, letting the last of the sun's warmth sink into your skin. The ocean whispers around you, reminding you that understanding begins with observation, with reflection, with patient attention. You carry this lesson forward, knowing that before you can touch the waters of a distant world, you must first honor the waters beneath your feet. And as you take one last look at the horizon, the thought lingers. The universe may hold oceans stranger than any dream, yet the language of water, its flow, its persistence, its quiet power, is a story you already know, waiting for you to read it among the stars. You lift a single droplet from the surface of still water. It glistens in the soft light, a tiny orb holding more than its size suggests. If you look closely, it is a universe. Within it, molecules drift and sway, simple dances in a choreography that has persisted for billions of years. Each atom is a note, each bond a vibration, and together they compose the quiet music of life. Carbon sits at the center of this miniature symphony. You can imagine it like a tiny conductor, inviting hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen to join in a delicate arrangement. They gather into chains and rings, forming the skeletons of molecules that will one day build cells, membranes, and the intricate scaffolding of living things. In your mind, you trace the patterns of these atoms, turning and folding in gentle spirals, a soft and rhythmic pulse that echoes across the droplet. Hydrogen atoms drift like drifting clouds, small and light, moving wherever the current allows. They form bonds easily, pairing with oxygen to make water itself, the medium in which all life swims. You notice nitrogen, quiet but essential, tucked inside amino acids and nucleotides. Its presence is like a soft bass line beneath a melody, subtle but crucial. These simple elements, ordinary on their own, together create something extraordinary, the potential for life. You imagine walking along the surface of this microscopic world. Each molecule is a stepping stone, each cluster a tiny island. You move slowly, absorbing the rhythm of their interactions. You see water molecules forming transient bridges, lifting small proteins from one place to another, nudging them gently along invisible pathways. The droplet is alive not because it contains life yet, but because it contains the ingredients, the potential, the whisper of what could be. You pause to watch a single protein folding. Its chain twists, turns, and coils, forming the precise shape it needs to function. You sense the elegance of its journey. It does not rush, yet it arrives at exactly the right form. This is the quiet patience of chemistry, a reminder that complexity can emerge from simplicity, that order can rise from seeming randomness. The droplet teaches you that life is not a sudden invention but a slow unfolding, a narrative written in atoms and bonds. Even in droplets far from Earth, in the cold oceans beneath alien ice, the same story may play. You imagine a distant moon, covered in thick sheets of frozen water. Beneath, liquid pockets drift in darkness. There, carbon finds hydrogen, nitrogen waits in quiet pools, and water flows in secret currents. If you could shrink down to the size of a molecule, you would see a mirrored dance of chemistry, a library of life being quietly written in the language of atoms. The universe hums with repetition and variation, a pattern that stretches across light years and eons. You feel the weight of this realization. Every droplet, every tiny pool, is a possibility. Life is not confined to certain planets or climates, it is a principle embedded in the nature of matter itself. It is patient and persistent, waiting for conditions to allow the story to unfold. The same elements that create your own cells may be arranging themselves elsewhere, in shapes and patterns that you cannot yet imagine. You are connected to these distant possibilities, part of a continuum that spans planets and stars. You let your mind wander into the internal architecture of the droplet. Lipids form soft membranes, enclosing tiny chambers. Nucleotides assemble in hesitant chains, carrying information like notes in a gentle song. Enzymes catalyze reactions with quiet efficiency, folding space and time into cycles of transformation. You sense the rhythm here, a heartbeat slower than any you can feel, yet perfectly regular. You imagine following a single chemical reaction as it passes through multiple intermediates, each step a gentle ripple in the microcosmic pond. You notice the beauty of repetition. A single amino acid repeats in a chain, and suddenly a protein emerges. A nucleotide sequence repeats, and suddenly a strand of RNA is alive with instructions. This repetition is not monotonous, it is generative. From simple rules, complex behaviors emerge. You recognize the same principle in yourself. The patterns you see in life at the molecular scale echo in the larger scale of organisms, ecosystems, and even thought itself. As you watch, you sense the quiet potential for evolution. Tiny variations appear in molecules, subtle differences in folding or bonding. Some persist, others dissolve back into the current. This trial and error, invisible to the eye, accumulates over time. It is the slow breathing of possibility, the unseen shaping force that may one day produce a cell, then an organism, then perhaps a whole ecosystem. You feel a soft reverence for the patience required, the gentle persistence of nature's hand. Water carries life's potential, but it also teaches you stillness. You watch how the droplet refracts light, how molecules diffuse and collide, how entropy and order dance together. You feel the quiet lesson: life thrives not in haste, but in the space between events, in the balance between chaos and structure. Every droplet you see, whether in a forest puddle, a rain-filled crater, or an alien ocean, is a container of these principles, a small stage where chemistry performs the first act of a grand cosmic play. You allow your attention to linger on the simplicity of it all. A few atoms, arranged in careful patterns, can produce the complexity of life. You recognize the poetry here, that from the tiniest building blocks, the largest questions arise. How does consciousness form from molecules? How does awareness emerge from patterns of atoms? You cannot answer these questions yet, but you feel the comfort of possibility, the gentle reassurance that the universe is capable of remarkable creativity with even the simplest tools. You imagine the droplets connecting. One spills into another, and molecules diffuse, recombine, and form new arrangements. This is collaboration at the smallest scale, a network of interactions that will ripple outward if conditions are right. You feel a kinship with this process, a recognition that life is cooperative at its core, built from countless small unions and exchanges. The droplet becomes a metaphor for your own experiences, for the ways in which small acts, connections, and exchanges shape the larger story of existence. The sunlight filters through, warming the surface of your imagined droplet. You sense the slow pulse of energy entering this tiny world, nudging molecules into motion, encouraging reactions, whispering of growth and possibility. You imagine watching the droplet over eons, seeing small networks of molecules stabilize, then diversify, a gradual crescendo of chemical complexity. Time is patient here, but it is also a guide, allowing patterns to emerge at their own pace. As you step back from this microcosm, you feel the profound elegance of simplicity. The ingredients of life are universal, yet their arrangement is endlessly inventive. A droplet, a single moment, a handful of elements, each holds the promise of entire worlds. You realize that in exploring these tiny spaces, you are exploring not just chemistry, but the very nature of existence, the quiet poetry of matter expressing itself in forms that, one day, may walk, swim, or even gaze at the stars. And so you leave the droplet, carrying its quiet lesson with you. The building blocks of life are patient, persistent, and poetic. The melody of atoms plays softly, waiting for the next note, the next arrangement, the next spark that might transform possibility into life. And in that waiting, in that gentle potential, you sense the bridge to other mysteries, the oceans of distant moons, the hidden chemistry beneath alien ice, the quiet songs that the universe hums for those who listen carefully enough. You float, weightless, in the quiet of your mind, imagining a world far from the warmth of our sun. Stars shimmer distantly, tiny lanterns on a velvet canvas, their light traveling years just to brush your thoughts. Somewhere in the silence beyond, hidden moons orbit patiently, their surfaces locked in eternal frost. You imagine the frozen crust of ice, thick and opaque, shielding secrets beneath. It is still. Cold. Yet beneath, water pulses like a secret heartbeat, moving slowly, insistently, carving canyons in stone as if the moon itself were breathing. The ice above is more than a barrier. It is a veil, a protective cover that keeps what lies beneath insulated from the harshness of space. You sense its dual nature, both prison and sanctuary. Light cannot reach these depths, but warmth exists, faintly, in the form of tidal friction. Gravity pulls at the interior of these moons, stretching and flexing their cores. This dance releases heat, gentle but persistent, enough to keep oceans liquid even when the surface is rigid as glass. You imagine dipping your hand into that water, feeling a warmth that comes from the planet itself, a warmth born of movement and pressure, of ancient rhythms that began long before you were born. Perhaps life waits there, in a form you cannot yet imagine. Not as we know it, not fish or coral, not plants or trees, but something alien, adaptable, shaped by conditions unlike anything on Earth. You picture creatures floating slowly in the dark, sensing vibrations in the water, communicating in pulses of energy or chemicals that drift silently like perfume. Their movements are deliberate, meditative, almost ritualistic, as if each gesture is a recognition of the rare chance to exist. These oceans are not chaotic, they are composed, patient, a cradle for possibility. You feel the calm that such quiet life might bring, as if the universe itself were teaching you to wait, to watch, and to imagine without expectation. Above these hidden oceans, the ice is not completely uniform. Cracks form, small fractures that hint at turbulence below. You picture the frozen surface quivering, flexing, responding to forces unseen. Occasionally, the ice shifts, opening a window, a place where liquid water might almost touch the airless void. Imagine a plume escaping through such a fracture, water vapor shooting into space, tiny droplets frozen in an instant. This water carries with it particles from the ocean below, traces of life, or chemical signatures that whisper stories of processes long hidden. Scientists on distant worlds could one day detect these signs and wonder, just as you do now, if life really exists where we cannot yet see. You allow your mind to wander further, imagining not one moon, but many. Europa, Enceladus, Titan, each with its own character, its own hidden waters, its own mysteries. Some are acidic, some salty, some filled with compounds unfamiliar to Earth's chemistry. Yet all share the quiet persistence of water in motion, the secret rhythm of currents beneath ice. It is a reminder that life is not only possible in warm, sunlit places, but may thrive in hidden corners, where pressure and chemistry replace sunlight, and where time moves in patient waves rather than minutes and hours. In the ocean beneath Europa's ice, you imagine the seabed dotted with chimneys of warmth. They vent heat and chemicals, creating small pockets of energy where life might gather. You see tiny microbial forms, clustering near these vents, harvesting energy from minerals rather than sunlight. There is no rush in their movement, no urgency, only a steady persistence that mirrors the movement of the planet itself. In your mind, you float alongside them, observing without disturbance, feeling a kinship with life so quiet, so unlike your own noisy existence on the surface. There is a beauty in this difference, a meditation in the realization that life can take forms utterly strange yet profoundly real. And yet, you also imagine that these oceans are fragile. A small change in temperature or chemistry could ripple through their hidden ecosystems. A plume escaping through the ice could carry secrets to space, but it could also expose delicate balances to the void. The universe is vast and patient, but it is also indifferent. You feel a gentle melancholy, the same calm sadness that comes when observing a delicate painting that might someday fade. But this is not despair, it is a soft acknowledgement of the impermanence of things, a recognition that the act of existing, no matter how hidden, is already extraordinary. You picture scientists on Earth gazing through telescopes and sending instruments across millions of kilometers, reaching out toward these hidden oceans. Probes may skim the ice, drill into the surface, or capture the faint traces of plumes that escape into space. They are silent visitors, not intrusive, but curious, carrying the dreams of millions of humans who long to know if we are alone. And while you imagine these efforts, you feel a bridge connecting your own consciousness to those distant worlds, a thread of curiosity that stretches across the void, linking hearts and minds in a shared desire to understand the unseen. Beneath the ice, the currents continue their slow journey, unseen but unstoppable. You imagine the subtle mixing of chemicals, the gentle ebb and flow, creating gradients that shape habitats, just as the tides on Earth shape coastlines. There is no hurry here, no end point, only ongoing transformation, a reminder that life and change need not be loud to be profound. You feel the rhythm of the ocean in your own heartbeat, a quiet resonance that reassures you that connection exists even across impossible distances. And as you linger in this thought, you sense the quiet lesson these oceans offer, that life is resilient, adaptable, and capable of existing in conditions that challenge our imagination. It waits where we might not think to look, thrives in darkness and pressure, and persists in patient motion. You close your eyes to the stars, imagining the tiny lights reflecting in the icy surface above, a soft reminder that the universe holds more than we can ever fully know. The hush of space mirrors the hush of these hidden oceans, both places where silence and possibility meet, where waiting is not empty but full of potential. And so, as you begin to drift further into your own quiet, you carry the image of those oceans beneath ice, dark, deep, and alive in ways that defy expectation. You imagine the creatures that glide through unseen currents, the plumes that escape to whisper into the void, the warmth that persists beneath layers of frozen silence. In your mind, you are suspended in this space, between worlds, between curiosity and understanding, feeling the gentle pull of discovery without ever needing to rush. You let yourself linger in this calm awareness, feeling both awe and intimacy with what lies hidden. And as you do, your thoughts begin to stretch toward the next mystery, not just the oceans beneath ice, but the forces that keep planets warm, the chemistry that enables life to emerge, the patterns that connect every quiet world in the galaxy. The ice above shimmers faintly in your mind's eye, and you realize that even in darkness, there is movement, and even in silence, there is life waiting, patiently, persistently, softly, for you to notice. You arrive quietly at a place that feels both familiar and strange. The sand beneath your feet is soft, though you cannot see it, and the air carries the subtle scent of salt that has never touched your nose. You breathe slowly, letting the quiet swell around you like a gentle tide, and for a moment, the world beyond this unseen shore falls away. You stand at the boundary between what is known and what is only imagined, and in that space, your mind begins to wander, tracing invisible lines across a hidden horizon. The rhythm of the ocean pulses somewhere deep below the surface of your awareness. You do not hear a single splash, yet the cadence of the waves is present, like a heartbeat shared with the earth itself. Imagine each wave as a thought, rising from the depths of curiosity, reaching its peak, and then dissolving softly back into the sea of possibility. Your thoughts move with it, stretching and contracting, joining in a slow dance that is both calming and infinite. You realize the ocean is not only outside you, it is also within, reflecting dreams, questions, and the quiet hum of consciousness. Here, in the stillness of this unseen beach, you notice the play of light, though there is no sun or moon above. The horizon glows faintly, as if lit from below, revealing the edges of the water without ever letting you touch it. The glow shifts and pulses with each wave's thought, revealing shapes that suggest rather than declare. You might see a glimmer of a distant island, a curve of a shell, or the faint silhouette of a fish darting beneath a hidden surface. Your imagination bridges the gaps, allowing you to walk along the shore, following paths that exist only in the mind's gentle eye. As you move forward, you realize that the sand has its own stories, tiny grains carrying whispers of ancient tides. Each particle has traveled long distances, shaped by unseen forces, and yet all of them gather here, holding memory and potential. You kneel down to touch the invisible sand, feeling the friction of moments compressed and layered, connecting the past to the present. The texture reminds you that even when things are hidden, they are still real in their influence, like currents shaping the unseen seabed, or thoughts forming in the quiet corners of your mind. The horizon shimmers with a kind of mathematics woven into nature. You sense patterns, spirals, arcs, and repeating rhythms. These are not mere decorations, they are the ocean speaking in a language older than words. You feel a subtle shift as you notice how the unseen water flows around obstacles, forming paths that are efficient, elegant, and alive. It reminds you of rivers and blood vessels, of galaxies spinning silently through space. Every wave, every ebb and pull is a demonstration of harmony, a reminder that order and beauty emerge naturally, even where it seems invisible. You pause and listen more deeply. The absence of sound becomes a presence of its own. There is a resonance in silence, a vibration that feels like a lullaby for the mind. It is as though the universe has taken a breath and invited you to do the same. You inhale slowly, and with each breath, you sense the tides of thought and feeling aligning with the rhythm of the hidden ocean. Each exhale lets go of the weight of day-to-day life, leaving you lighter, more attuned to subtle currents beneath your awareness. You are both observer and participant in a quiet symphony that never ends. As your awareness expands, you notice shadows beneath the water, suggestions of creatures moving in patterns you can almost predict but never fully capture. Perhaps a school of fish arcs through liquid corridors of light, or a jellyfish pulses in delicate synchronicity. You feel the water respond to your attention, not in action, but in invitation. It asks you to explore, to wonder, to imagine without boundaries. The ocean becomes a mirror for your curiosity, a companion for your mind wandering toward gentle truths hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Time here stretches differently. A moment can last an hour, and an hour can feel like a heartbeat. You are free to follow currents without concern for arrival, to watch tides rise and fall in slow motion, to sense the depth of something larger than yourself without ever fully grasping it. You understand that this ocean, hidden and unseen, does not demand control. It asks only for attention, presence, and the willingness to float along its slow, meditative rhythm. Here, you are reminded of the beauty of patience and the art of observation, the subtle science of noticing and feeling rather than doing. The air hums softly, carrying the faintest vibrations of energy. Imagine them as messages from the deep, encoded in the motion of water molecules, in the shift of pressure across unseen currents. You sense the interplay of countless interactions, the way particles connect and influence one another, producing phenomena that are both gentle and profound. The universe whispers its secrets not with noise, but with pattern, rhythm, and resonance. Each breath you take is a way to tune in, to feel the subtle energies flowing through and around you, and to recognize your own place in this hidden harmony. You wander closer to the imagined edge where water meets air, sensing how the invisible waves curl in slow arcs, rising and falling in perfect symmetry. The water does not wet your skin, yet you feel its presence in every nerve ending, in every quiet pulse of awareness. You understand, in a soft knowing, that the ocean is not fully separate from you. It flows within your thoughts, your feelings, and even your imagination. You are part of the tide, and the tide is part of you, a continuous interplay of motion, perception, and reflection. The horizon begins to glow more vividly, revealing subtle colors you cannot name, hues that exist between the familiar shades of your waking life. Each wave carries a prism of possibility, shifting in subtle gradients that suggest stories without words. You realize that the ocean's movements are a kind of language, speaking in gestures and rhythms rather than letters and sounds. You are reading it not with eyes or ears, but with the quiet attentiveness of the soul, and every moment of attention deepens the understanding of what is unseen yet profoundly alive. Slowly, you feel a gentle pull toward the deeper waters, a curiosity that cannot be ignored. The rhythm of the tides invites you to follow, to let imagination lead the way. You step forward, feeling the soft brush of wind that seems to rise from the hidden surface, carrying salt and promise in its quiet dance. Each step is a meditation, a rhythm matching the pulse of the waves, the slow unfolding of the invisible ocean. The world of imagination stretches out endlessly, a continuum of questions and reflections, waiting for the next chapter of your journey to unfold. You pause at the brink, listening, sensing, and breathing. The ocean remains hidden, yet you carry it inside, a secret rhythm that will move with you beyond this shore. You realize that imagination's tide never ends, it shifts, flows, and returns in ways both familiar and mysterious. You stand there, not knowing exactly what comes next, and that is the point, to linger, to feel, to wonder. The waves may be unseen, but their presence is undeniable, and the rhythm of curiosity will continue to guide you softly, gently, into the next unfolding of thought and dream.